Well, good morning. So today I have Nick with us who has a very entrepreneurial spirit, who wants to start businesses and wants to make a difference in this world. He founded his award-winning home business, which was known as a primarily healthcare business, which was started 7 years ago and was known as Heal. Currently, he's founded his another business called HeyRenee, which is another company specifically focused on healthcare, making a difference in the world again. Let's welcome Nick on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom, where he will tell us about why he's so into starting his own businesses, what got him into health specifically, and how his experience been so far. Hi, Nick. How are you doing?
Great. Great to be on your program and happy to share whatever I know.
Of course. So, Nick, can you tell us about the companies that you founded? How has your experience been so far?
Yeah, so I'm a 51-year-old first generation immigrant from India and did my undergrad and master's both in electrical engineering. And since 1998, Hey Renee is actually my fifth investor funded startup. So I have done venture funded startups in the five of them, and Hey Renee is the fifth. The biggest one so far, by far, has been Heal, which Renee, my wife, Dr. Renee Du, and I founded 7 years ago. It's a home-centric primary care company, doctor house calls. Think of it as app like Uber, where a doctor will come to your house and give you a house call in your home and covered by insurance. We raised $165 million for that company, launched it in 11 states. It's still around and doing very well. We're still shareholders and very excited and happy shareholders. But we stepped out in the spring of this year to start a new company called Hey Renee, which is in more in the digital care coordination space for seniors and polychronic patients to help them stay on track with all their medications and all their appointments and their real-time vitals and all of their needs.
Of course. So, why specifically healthcare though? As in, like, both these two companies and were revolving around health. I mean, it makes sense because of the pandemic and everything. Everyone realizes that
Yeah.
without health, you're really nothing. But why specifically health? Did you come from a family that was filled with doctors? What exactly was the reasoning?
Well, so Renee, my wife, is a physician. Her parents, being an Indian family, her parents are physicians. My parents were business people, and I'm a business person, but fundamentally you get to a point in your life where with three young kids we want to devote our time to something that helps people. Yes, we want to make money, and yes, we want to build a great business, but we want to do it making a difference, right? And I want to go home and tell my kids I did something that I'm proud of. I'm and transforming healthcare, whether it was getting a doctor to a sick person in their home on a Sunday when they it gives them incredible relief and peace of mind, or whether it's with Hey Renee helping older, underserved Americans and people around the world, hopefully, keep track and achieve better health outcomes. We want to help people, and so healthcare is the most biggest industry and the most impactful way to directly help human beings.
Okay, I like that. And you specifically mentioned that you want to go back to your kids and mention that you're making a difference. Do you have one of those examples where you were like, okay, to your kids that, okay, I did something and I'm really proud of it. Maybe share, could you share one of those examples?
As a father, and any of the other parents out that are listening will appreciate this. You don't ever really tell your kids, "I did something that I'm proud of," right? It's more what they see and they observe, right? Renee and I both work 6 days a week. I work Monday through Friday, take Saturday off, and then work on Sundays. And my kids know that daddy has to get up to work and go on Sundays. Renee will work more on Saturdays or Sundays from home or whatever. But when she's up at 5 a.m. or at night working, they know that they're doing something important. They ask us things like, well, so how do people see a doctor before heal data? Right. And if someone is sick, can we go to everybody's houses? Right. And say Renee is still new, but they ask questions that make them understand that we are part of healthcare, and over time they will understand it's important. I always use this example. I don't think my parents ever have said the words to me, "You need to work hard," but all I ever saw them do is work really, really hard, right? So it's not an I can give you an example of something that I told them that we're proud of, as much as them feeling like they are a part of something and they're a part of what we're building, and they come to our office and they see our workplace and they know that we're in charge, and they know that our job makes us have to go away from them sometimes and we don't want to, but it's part of how we live our lives.
Wow, I absolutely love the way. Now when I think of it, yeah, my parents were never like, do this, do that, and everything. It's just the way they live their life, and you're just like, okay, I can see that. If I consider them role models, I would follow in their footsteps.
Yes,
So it definitely makes sense, and the way you said it and everything was very beautiful. So thank you for sharing
of
that, Nick.
course.
And Nick, I'd love to hear regarding specifically, you've started so many businesses and everything. So, for example, if you were to hire anyone for your company, for example, HeyRenee, what are some things that you would take into consideration specifically when hiring people for your company?
So look, I have hired over the last 23, 24, 25 years. I have hired probably a couple thousand people, right? I've fired people, I've had to let them go, people have left. Some people don't like working for me, some people love working for me or with me. And I've learned some things along the way that I'll share, right? The first is I want to hire people. I always say this, the first requirement to get the job is to want the job. Okay. And it sounds like a truism and it sounds like, why is this is useless advice? But it really isn't. And I'll tell you why. If you send in a resume to a company, is your resume, let's start here. Is your resume file named resume.doc? Think about that. I get 1,000 resumes and I have to rename each one because each one is resume.doc and resume.doc. Or is it with your name, right? Nick Desai resume with a date, right? Is it PDF so I can easily read it on my phone, or did you just make a Word document, right? Are there typos and spelling errors in it? Is it very clear what you did? Is it 14 pages long? Because nobody wants to read that. One, maybe 2 pages is the max, right? Is it very clear what you're good at? Very clear what your education is? Very clear what kind of job you want? Did you write a cover letter? Is that cover letter passionate? Is it grammatically correct? If I reply to you or our HR team says, hey, we're interested, we typically, what we do in our hiring is we answer 6 to 8 questions by email first. Do you respond? How quickly do you respond? How thoroughly do you respond? Right? Those are all things that show me you really want the job. Right? If you have a great resume, if you took the time to name it, if you send your LinkedIn profile, if you wrote a cover letter, if you respond to questions quickly, you have the enthusiasm to want the job, right? Those are critical things, right? Now, every person who works at every company has a right to work in a safe, motivating, inspiring, positive, energetic, harassment free, racism free work environment, right? Get paid a fair wage, get do all of those things are true. But you should make sure of those things later in the process. Too often now, I hear candidates start by saying, well, I want to understand your vacation policy before we go any further, right? Or I want to understand, you know, this or that or whatever, right? Your first job is to sell yourself to me, okay? Or to whoever the hiring person is. And prepare. So the second big thing I look at is preparedness. It's easy to know what we're trying to do. We have a LinkedIn page, we have a website, I have a LinkedIn page, we have tons of press out there. People would come to interview with Heal and we'd like, oh, so tell me, what does Heal do and why would you want to be here? And they're like, well, I haven't looked at your website yet. Okay, click end of interview, right? But there's people who come in like, well, Nick, in 2019, you gave a speech at the Health 2.0 conference, and I watched it. And here's what I took away. And I was like, well, it's not because they watched me. I watched some other news clip on Heal. It's not about me, but it shows that they took the time to prepare, right? Because these are what do you want in an employee? You want someone who's enthusiastic. You want someone who's qualified. You want someone who is uh, prepared, right? You want someone who is able to sell themselves, right? So I think those are just some of the things right off the top of my head that I would say.
Wonderful things, definitely. And I think it's very important because, I mean, if you're enthusiastic about the role, you definitely do put in a lot of hard work, which eventually translates into greater success, greater results for the company itself. So I can definitely see why you would want someone who shows that they're much more enthusiastic, they're actually dedicated to the role itself, and that they want the role badly.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, Thank you so much for sharing such great, wonderful insights. We love to keep things short. Our time is up, but it was an absolute pleasure having you as a guest and learning so much about you and the companies that you founded so far.
Okay, wonderful. Glad to be on, and I'll close with one tip. When you are on an interview and somebody asks you questions, keep your answers as brief as possible. Say the
Okay,
most
interesting.
important thing first and talk for as little time as possible because the people who are talking to you are busy. And if you get the point across, they'll ask you the next question.
Okay, sounds good. Well, Nick gave you the last advice. Make sure you keep that in mind for your next interview. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much,
much.
Nick.